Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and it's really great to be here with you in the coffee world. My first experience with you guys, actually. We will now talk about why it is fundamentally important for humanity to safeguard the diversity of crops, the biodiversity of crops. And that, of course, includes coffee. We will also speak about how we can do it, because it is doable. I'm not going to tell you that it's easy, but we can conserve the diversity of crops. It is actually mission possible. So to take you into the mission possible, I will first take you a little tour to an island called Svalbard. And you can't even see the US on this map properly. You can't see Seattle, but you can see the northern part of Europe. You see the UK, Iceland, and you see a tiny island up there. It's called Svalbard. When you fly in, you basically only see ice. Ice, 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 and snow. It's dark cold up there. You see a little bit of water also. A few years ago, this fjord, it used to be completely frozen. Due to climate change, unfortunately, it isn't anymore. But up here in Svalbard, in addition to the ice, you have a little town with 2,000 people. You have 3,500 ice bears, polar bears, up there. And you have 12,000 very funny-looking reindeers, genetically adapted to the climate up there. In addition to this, it's basically all. But in addition to that, you have one more thing. You have one seed vault. And if you go closer, this is the entrance to it. You see there's a door there. If you walk 130 meters straight into the mountain, you will find boxes, 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 and boxes of seeds. You will find 930,000 varieties of seeds up there. And you know, there are boxes from North Korea, from South Korea. There are boxes from Ukraine and Russia on the same shelf. It's quite amazing. And it's so peaceful, so it's doable to have a global community where everybody sits there quiet and sits down and behave decently. They do up there. No noise, no trouble at all. Now you can ask, of course, is this a brilliant idea or is it madness to have 930 varieties of seeds deep in the mountain in the permafrost? Well, let's discuss that. Think about it for a while. You know, basically everything starts with a seed, right? Can you imagine a world without seeds? I don't think you can. You know, we would have no trees, no forests, no flowers. We would have very little to eat. Think about our clothes. Where does it come from? Wood in the furniture, houses. You know, it basically all starts with the seeds. And we think about it so little. You know, these seeds, these are actually one of our most important natural resources. And we hardly think about it. We hardly speak about it. Seeds come in all forms and shapes, just as human beings. We're also in all forms and shapes. Some of them are pretty boring. Some are quite exciting. I mean, these seeds, these beans, it's a piece of art, isn't it? It's beautiful. These guys and these ones, they are pretty easy to conserve. We can conserve them long time. We dry them and we freeze them. We put them in minus 18 degrees Celsius, as we do in Svalbard, and they're good. And you know, they are viable after, some of them, many hundreds of years. These guys are much more difficult to conserve. You know, the seed is as big as your head. The coconut is the seed. It can float in the ocean for 3 months and land on a beach, and then they sprout. but they sprout very easily. They are awfully difficult to look after. You can't freeze them. Just like coffee. Coffee is also awfully difficult to deal with because they don't have seeds in the same way as many other crops do. So we have to conserve these in the field, in field collections, in field gene banks, as you will know from coffee. Now, we do have many million varieties of seeds around, and they come in all shapes and sizes, as I say. They also come with very different traits. And that's important to understand. You know, we do have roughly 4,500 varieties of potatoes globally. We have probably around 20,000 varieties of coffee. Did you know that? 20,000 varieties. We have like 35,000 varieties of maize, 125,000 varieties of wheat. We have probably 200,000 varieties of rice globally. We in the Crop Trust, the organization I'm heading, we are concerned to conserve each one of those because one of them might have the trait that we need in the future when we breed new varieties that can adapt to higher temperature, maybe higher salinity in the soil, that can fight a new pest, a new disease, or whatever it is, that can give better taste, higher nutritional value. We got to be smart enough now as a global community to safeguard the diversity that we have left, because safeguarding that diversity is really to safeguard options for the future. And see, we have lost so many options. In the US, we've lost in the field 93% of fruit and vegetable varieties since 1900. If we go to China, they only use in the field 10% of the rice varieties that they used to use in 1950. 80% of corn maize varieties in Mexico are lost in the field. Lots of this stuff is gone forever. But thank goodness there has also been wise people around that have been out in the field collecting some of this material. So there are 1,750 plant gene banks around the world where seeds are stored. Seeds, the plants that have seeds, or trees where you need to have trees like coffee, like coconut, like cassava. Some of these gene banks are in excellent shape, many are in poor shapes. And it's a fact that many of these containing coffee are not in the best of shapes. We'll get back to that. So all these millions of seeds, they are collected from farmers' field. They are collected naturally in the wild. They are then sorted. They might be grown out so farmers can get them directly and use them, or they can be used by breeders. And now, agriculture generally is really up for a major challenge these days, probably the biggest challenge ever, due to climate change. The basic problem is that the climate changes faster than these plants are able to adapt. And that's dramatic for all of us. Also because we have a growing world population, 7 billion of us now, 10 in 25, 30 years, and production of the major crops is leveling out, mainly due to climate change. So, we have an increasing world population, we have production going down, this doesn't add up. So many crops are up for trouble. But breeding new varieties then gives us new options, start afresh. And when breeders have done that, then duplicates are made. These new varieties are shared with farmers. They can be developed by natural breeding to improve productivity for farmers. They can have been bred to be resistant to new diseases. They can stand drought better. They can maybe stand submergence better. They can be bred purely for improving taste, or they can have been bred for increasing nutritional value. You know, it's absolutely amazing what you can do with these seeds. Huh? But then you got to make sure you have them, and you got to know what you can use them for. And that's not necessarily an easy thing. Now, so when these new varieties are bred and they're used, then they go back to a gene bank, and they are conserved there, either like this or in a field collection. I'm awfully concerned to say that we don't conserve for the sake of conservation. We conserve for the material to being used. And the thing is that we globally are completely interdependent when it comes to seeds. No country has everything, and never will. Even the US is awfully well organized in this area, but they have only 10% of the diversity that exists globally in their gene banks. So, you know, scientists in the US are also completely dependent on getting material from other parts of the world. We need to share genetic resources. When we breed new varieties, it can be with like 20, 30 different varieties from different parts of the world. So we do need to share. And we still have a way to go. There is an international treaty defining how we can share, and with an access and benefit sharing system attached to it. But unfortunately, there are still several countries that haven't ratified that, or they don't comply with it. We do struggle with this in the coffee world, no doubt about it. I'll give you one example then on how this global system for conservation is meant to work. And the example I want to use now is grass pea, or, as you see here in Latin, Lathryus sativa. Grass pea is a fascinating crop. It is tolerant to extreme conditions. You can grow it almost anywhere. It requires hardly anything, and it will grow. And it is awfully nutritious, high in nutritional value. You know, at the outset, excellent. The only trouble is that if you eat too much of it, and you eat it for a long period of time, then children can get brain damage, and adults can get paralyzed from the knee and down. It's very, very weird, huh? But that's the way grass pea is, as of now. Unfortunately, because it would have been a great crop to avoid starvation in many parts of the world if it didn't have the problems attached to it. It is poor people's crop for the time being. Very often, in parts of the world, people have to make a choice. Do you want to die of starvation? Or do you want to eat grass pea? And chances are that you can become paralyzed. Of course, our dream is that we can develop a grass pea variety that is as tough as the existing one, that can grow almost everywhere with very little water, in high temperature, etc. That it has the same nutritional value as it does today, and that it doesn't have the negative aspects to it, that the toxic part is lost. Of course, we believe this can be done, because we know there are varieties that don't have the same toxic level. So the challenge is to use the different varieties and breed them to find the crop that will work. It can be done, but we've got to have the diversity available to do it. The diversity of grass pea is existing in various gene banks around the world, but the most important collection has been in ICARDA, the gene bank ICARDA, which is one of the 11 international plant gene banks. ICARDA is located in Aleppo in Syria. So we have a problem. There's an ongoing war in Aleppo in Syria. And the gene bank in Aleppo in Syria can now not be used. So the good thing is that we have worked with ICARDA for several years. Almost all the material in ICARDA is backed up in Svalbard. So when the gene bank in Aleppo couldn't work, then it was decided in September 2015 that we take the material out from Svalbard, which is the backup of the global system. We take that out from Svalbard and we re-establish the gene bank partly in Morocco and partly in Lebanon. What this describes is basically two things. One, if we have access to the diversity, it's amazing what we can do. Secondly, it's awfully important that we have backup systems in the world if things go wrong. We hope things don't go wrong, but they do. And when we lose diversity, then we lose it forever. Dead is dead. You just can't wake it up. Options are lost forever. Since we've had this backup system, scientists can now continue to work on these crops. They can work on grass pea, they can work on wheat, they can work on barley. And we hope that we will develop a grass pea that doesn't have the negative effects. We know it can be done. Coffee is also up for struggle, as you know, and as we have been told earlier on today. Arabica coffee is extremely climate sensitive. And with temperature now increasing in parts of the world where Arabica coffee is grown, we are in trouble. And we are in trouble because there isn't a global system for conservation of coffee, as we have for other crops. We in the Crop Trust are concerned that the coffee world doesn't have a global strategy for conservation. We are delighted that we have had the chance to work with World Coffee Research, and the global strategy is now just around the corner. And you'll hear much more about it afterwards. But I hope, by what I've been saying up to now, that you'll understand that coffee as of now, because we don't have a system around it, is extremely vulnerable. That should be a concern to everybody in the coffee world. Everyone, from the farmer to the industry itself. This is a picture from Katya. Katya is an important gene bank. It has a lot for coffee. It has a lot of challenges to it. It's fully possible to upgrade Katya, as it is with some of the other important gene banks for coffee. It's fully possible to safeguard money for maintenance of Katya, as well as the other most important gene banks with coffee, through an endowment fund that we have established in the Crop Trust. The money that goes into this is hardly anything compared to the value that is within the coffee industry and the coffee world. It is a basis for the coffee industry in the future. And as for other crops, if we aren't sensible enough now to safeguard the basis, we are in trouble in the long run. We need to have farmers around that have the raw material that they need to do the production. We need to have the coffee available for all of us who want to enjoy that in the future. And as we've heard, prospects are great. People drink more coffee, and it looks like they will continue to do that. So it's great opportunities for the industry, but we do need to make sure that we get the basis right. And as of now, the basis is sort of shaky. We cannot conserve coffee in Svalbard, but Svalbard has shown that it's useful. It's a brilliant idea. It's not madness. It's completely possible to be inspired by what we did in Svalbard and say that, of course, we also need to safeguard the diversity of coffee. It can be done. It is not awfully expensive, ladies and gentlemen. It is mission possible. Let's just do it for the well-being of the coffee industry tomorrow, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 50 years from now, and not the least for all of us who are big coffee lovers. Thank you very much.